Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel today for another review. Today, we're going to be reviewing the new film Roadhouse, which is coming to Prime Video March 21st, where this film also made its world premiere this year at South by Southwest 2024. So, yeah, Nadia and I here to talk about this reboot from the 1989 classic by the same title of Roadhouse, which stars Patrick Swayze, which a lot of people enjoyed. I definitely enjoyed. It's definitely one of those guilty pleasures of the past. In all due respect, it's not one of those films that I put in any elite category or whatnot, but it was one of those films like, you know what? If it's on, I'm always intrigued. And I will say that I do think it withstands the test of time also too, because I also think that it looks like Hollywood is at times either paying homage back to some of the classic or even trying to take inspiration and kind of use some of the classic in terms of cinema and some of the current projects. As a big horror fan, I love that. But in other sort of genres, such as this one being more action based, more thriller, it's unique in its own way. You don't see it too often, but here or there it pops up. But yeah, this is coming to Prime Video again, March 21st. Starting off just at that, what was your thoughts about the film? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Where do you sit with this one?
I think it should have stayed in the 80s. I think some things just certain certain like movies and like themes like fit a generation, they fit a decade, and this is something I felt like should have stood in the 80s. I felt like overall it was extremely cheesy. The Nothing was really like, none of the moments hit, nothing was taken serious. It was just like, oh, here's a shot of Jake Gyllenhaal with his shirt off. Like, let's keep focusing on that, and then like let's focus on McGregor's ass, and then like I like McGregor. I will say that I thought he was hilarious for his acting debut. I'll give him that, but I just feel like it's just a huge like mess, like a joke. It's just some, like I said, it just felt too 80s, and the characters were very cartoonish and like goons and fake thugs. Like, oh man, like I'm coming after you with my golf club. Like he literally made a joke like, I haven't went golfing in a long time, and I was like, it was such 80s cringe.
Yeah, I mean, yes, if it's your cup of tea, then it works, and then if it's not, then I think you are on your side of it, because I don't have a problem with it. I think the film was very self-aware. I knew when folks started to see the names attached to it, which obviously starring Jake Gyllenhaal. You mentioned Conor McGregor, who's one of the UFC's biggest stars on their roster, and just overall big star in terms of combat sports. Daniela, Jessica Williams. I mean, you have a bunch of names that easily can market towards the box office, but the director in Doug Lehman was very, very clear that this was going to always be a streaming release. So, I respect that, and I also respect Prime Video for their releases, man. I'm not mad at what they put out, but I think in this new day and age of cinema, I think that should be sort of an indication in terms of where you're going to get with the film. If it's going theatrical, you're saying like, hey, they're trying to make a play here. Certain releases during certain parts of the year, you kind of look at like, oh, okay, they're trying to bait towards award season. And then you got some films that they say like, hey, we're just gonna cut our losses and collect the check, go straight to streaming. Which streaming, sometimes going straight to streaming is like the equivalent to straight to DVD or video on
That's what
demand,
I was saying. This would
whatever
have
it
been
may
straight
be.
to VHS in the 80s.
But I'm not mad at it. Very self-aware. I think it pays homage to the original. So the tone is there. I do love that dry humor at time. I'm a big action film star, so I do love corny one-liners. I think some of our biggest action stars wouldn't even be big if they wasn't able to come off with some of those corny liners. Like, granted, some of them have been able to kind of convert into like bigger roles and show more diversity in their acting. But then you got folks like me. I love Jason Statham. You're not going to get much from that guy. He's going to give you a corny one-liner and kick some butt and so on. Now, I'd be very clear. I feel like the Jake Gyllenhaal casting is more of a who is this new day and age Patrick Swayze, instead of just, because it's not a I don't think this is a traditional role film. It's not somebody, if I had to say, if you looked at the script and you needed him, ex-UFC fighter Dalton, it takes a job as a bouncer in Florida Keys Roadhouse, only to discover that the paradise is not at all what it seems. I'm not thinking Jake Gyllenhaal at all here. Actually, if I had to like really look at the cast, I'll say, oh well, Conor McGregor is going to play Dalton because he is a UFC fighter, and he doesn't have a resume for acting, so you give him really short, corny one-liners, minimum script, and let him fight. So it's kind of like, man, you took somebody who's overqualified for a role and really dumbed it down in a way that I just would not have had. I would not have casted Jake for that role unless Jake is just a big enough name that you say, like, we have him in it, he has a physique, maybe this would draw some folks in. So it's interesting casting choices, shall I say. Also, Post Malone is in this as well. One of the biggest artists in the world. Very minimum screen time, but he sells. He's on the posters, so they marketing him. That's going to draw folks in, But yeah, for me, I just think that the film definitely was much longer than it needed to be. It was about 2 hours. I thoroughly enjoyed Conor McGregor. He was by all means the comedic relief that you expected him to be. But when it came down to the fighting, him and Jake had some really good fight moments. The fight choreography was on point, especially in the third act. CGI, little wonky at times, maybe a little overkill at times. But then again, that's it. Again, this is I swear, it's my testament to, like, if you're going straight to streaming or if you're going straight to video on demand, then I expect these things when you're CGI. I expect to see, like, oh yeah, that wasn't good, So
I was like,
yeah,
extension Fast and Furious.
yeah, there was definitely some scenes where you're just like, yeah, the dominant Toretto gonna roll up at any moment. So but yeah, overall I didn't love it, I didn't hate it. Definitely had some good moments, definitely had some forgettable moments. Good film that you were a fan of the first one. I think you should tune in. I don't like to make too many comparisons, but when it comes down to doing reboots, I'm always on the fence of, did we ask for this? I'm not in the demo to have make that request, because consider I was barely born when the first one came out, and appreciated the film later on in the years. But for the folks who grew up probably loving this film, probably going to the theaters to go see it, I think you won't be mad at this film. I think it paid enough homage to look back to still appreciate that one, but also obviously see the inspiration from it. And I think that if you somehow, some way just discover it by cutting on Prime and seeing it on there, I think you won't be mad at doing so. I think for our generation, there's films, I really hate to be that person, but like, there's films that we never wanted to be touched.
Yeah.
And then they came out and then it was horrendous. This is not that. I do not think it's one of those like, oh my God, why? I just think it's to stay true to its era. It did not mature over time. It didn't try to be a part of the times. It just basically took a new fresh coat of paint with some new actors, a little twist on the story, and really kept it as a classic late 80s, early 90s film. So what about you? Because I definitely gave my whole review right there. That's it.
I guess, like, one thing I will say, I do like Jake Gyllenhaal kind of showing us like more range, and kind of taking on like different genres. He's done some amazing roles like Prisoners, and then Zodiac, and I feel like now he's doing a little more action, like Southpaw, Ambulance, Spider-Man. So I do appreciate that aspect. Like, I do feel like he was believable, and I did actually like that his character was like, he would smile, which would kind of make it awkward, but I think that kind of added like a layer to his character that made him a little more interesting than just the typical like brute. Like I said, it's an extension of like the Fast and the Furious. I feel like it was a cheesy 80s movie, like all the way, like so many cheesy like one-liners, the ridiculous like moments. I'm a big fan of like Sons of Anarchy and Mayans. I noticed Pardo, is it not Jason, Joaquin,
Oh yeah,
Pardo, like he was so corny. Like all of the like henchmen were so beyond cheesy.
yeah.
Like they go into the bar, they start breaking stuff. I was like, what are they, 15 years old? Like it was like ridiculous. Like a bunch of little kids like coming into the bar like with his crew, like I'm the cool guy, I'm gonna show
Yeah.
off. Like that's how it felt. So it just felt super 80s in that sense. And then I guess trying to make it relevant to the times now, I was trying to like, I don't know, I guess figure out like why they made some of the changes. So say like in the original was Missouri. Um Not to sound like ignorant, but I'm guessing like that was a little more like redneck like bar fight. So for this being in Florida, I was trying to like understand where this section is and like what kind of people are there, because everyone in this just felt kind of thrown in. No one
Did you
felt
did you say Florida, right?
Florida.
Yeah. That's the statement. It's Florida.
Yeah.
Honestly, this makes it even more believable.
Like everyone in there in that bar just felt like, I don't know, like everyone just felt so different. It was just
It's
a
Florida.
mess.
It's Florida.
Yeah. And then I learned something new with this. Well, okay, I'm gonna say two things. Daniela Melchior's Ellie. She's from Guardians of the Galaxy. She played a rat catcher. So she's kind of like on a streak right now. So she's kind of, I guess, who they're pushing to be like the next it girl. I did not like that she's like half his age. That I'm kind of annoyed with Hollywood. They keep doing that. They keep going for like the younger and younger actresses as these guys are like hitting 40s and 50s. So I was kind of annoyed with her casting. It kind of made me uncomfortable. And then the second thing, I learned something because I was like, I take offense like as a Latina when people conflate Europeans with Latins and when people mix like different Latin cultures. So when I first saw her, I was like, they better not be making her Cuban because Portuguese is not the same as Spanish. Um, and then I realized the actor that plays her father, he's also Portuguese. So I was like, you know what? Let me look this up. And I learned that Portuguese is the third most spoken language in Florida. So I was like, oh,
Interesting.
okay, yeah. I was like, all right, I find that interesting. I was like, okay, I'll step back a little bit because there's
Yeah.
been times in media where like I remember this Marvel comic I read once where they had Puerto Rican characters from New York City speaking Mexican West Coast slang, like vato, like, and it was like we don't talk like that, and everyone looked like cholos, and I was like, New York City would not like that at all. Like that's LA Mexican. This is New York Puerto Rican. Like our slang is way different. So I was like, when I first saw that, I was like, they better not be making her Cuban. But I was like, okay, I respect that. They made her Portuguese. They cast a Portuguese actor as her father. So I kind of like that. And then it's funny because they were both in the Fast and the Furious.
That's true.
Yeah. But yeah, I learned something new with that. And then on to like McGregor, I thought he was hilarious. He's like theatrical already, so this role was kind of fitting for him. And he was already like bragging about I made more money than The Rock, and that kind of had me like cracking up that he's already like bragging about it. But I think he was kind of perfect for this like henchman because he's like obnoxious. His character Knox, he's, you know, like I said, like we see his ass. He's literally just like
he's the top henchman when no one else can get the job done. They bring him in, and he's a terrible driver. He loves to show his ass, literally. And but when it comes down to it, Knox and Dalton, I mean, they're almost cut from the same cloth in terms of being two products of the Octagon. So they have their moments, and they're amazing fights. And I almost thought there might have been a measure of even having respect there, but they didn't even make that at all. To your point, is that the film never takes itself serious. So I love that they didn't try to throw in themes in there or try to have these like moral compasses in it. Like, no, it was nothing but just a guy that worked at a bar that kind of just was working on some inner things, and whether he was able to resolve those or not, I'm not even here to determine that. But they to me, they just never made it deep at all. Real quick before I get back to you. that's what I mentioned. Bo Knapp is an actor that I've been following for a while, and he's somebody else too. If I had really looked down this roster and realized who was going to be a part of this film, which he's worked with Jake in the past before too, I wouldn't have been mad if him taking the lead here. I think he's a tremendous actor, and I think he is still waiting for that big notable role to really put him on the map. But yeah, up and down the board, man, there's just some good names attached to this, and I think that everybody gets a chance to give something in the film. But overall, I think the film still very much sits in the very much middle part of like, it's not great, it's not, it's just right there for it. So, but yeah, go ahead, continue.
Well, yeah, McGregor was obnoxious. He definitely like steals the scene. I like that he tried to expand his horizons and try acting. He's kind of like a deranged like nutcase. He's like homicidal, cocky villain. He's super charismatic. Like, I feel like he honestly stole like every scene he was in. And then I was gonna say, in terms of it not taking itself seriously, I think this is where it should have tried to change things up a little bit, because I felt like it tried to approach moments and then it was like it skipped over it. Like the whole scene where they burned down the bookstore, it was like, all right, they could have really like hit themes like gentrification and like this real estate mogul dude, whatever, like trying to take over all these businesses. They could have made him a little more like, I don't know, a little more scary, show him attacking like other businesses, but them like burning down like this bookstore with this dad and this like little girl, they just like completely like breezed over it. And like any other thing that kind of could have been important, it was just like, we're just gonna make a joke out of this and just laugh. And it was like, I don't know, I wish it would have either like stuck one way or went the other way, because it wasn't a comedy, but moments that weren't supposed to be funny were funnier than the moments that were funny. So it was just like, I don't know. Like I said, it's a lot of 80s cringe for me. I do like that they had the UFC flashbacks, but that's another moment that I feel like they kind of dropped the ball, because he's having nightmares, but they never address like, does he have like PTSD? They didn't really like delve into that, and like they try to make it seem like, all right, the reboot gave him more of a backstory, but they didn't really show much aside from his UFC fight. So I feel like that was another thing that kind of dropped the ball for me. But yeah, I like that he reports himself, Jake's character. Like he calls the cops or something every time he does something. When he beat up all the goons, he dropped them off at the hospital. And the guy's like, oh, thanks, man. Like that was kind of funny, that moment. But yeah, I don't know. It was just very like Fast and Furious-y 80s, like not even, I can't even like diss Steven Seagal like that. It was just like even more cringe. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. As a big Fast and Furious fan of the franchise, is right down my alley. But yeah, on that note, you all can let us know your thoughts about this when you check it out. It will be again releasing on Prime Video March 21st with a runtime of just over 2 hours. But nonetheless, check it out. Come back, jump in the comments, let us know your thoughts about Roadhouse, the 2024 edition. You might as well go ahead and watch the 1989 version too. Might as well get both of those in this weekend or something, whenever it releases. Let us know.
But there's a really good fight scene.
Yeah. If anything, you definitely can wait to that third act. There's a super solid fight scene. You would expect that. They're not bringing Conor on, not gonna let him do what he does. So, but yeah, let us know in the comments once you check it out. And as always, stay tuned for more reviews and content here at Big O Bell Media very soon.